Truth in plain sight.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Lamont Democracy here. Truth in plain sight. Tips Media down here in downtown Toronto at our studio. On today's show, I'm going to use this platform to bring up a subject that's been dear to my heart for quite some time. It's been on my mind. As a matter of fact, we'd love your feedback in the comments section or via email so we can address and discuss these topics on future shows. Ultimately, we're always interested in what you, the people of Canada and around the world, have to say, and we do enjoy your input. Otherwise, we wouldn't have created a decentralized media such as Truth in Plain Sight so that our voices are heard without worrying about being shadow banned, censored, delisted, and arrested for our views on social media. Even now, we may be soon contending with certain laws such as Bill C-293, the Pandemic Prevention and Preparedness Act here in Canada. Recently, our illustrious Liberal government has proposed to exercise power over Canadians for their own protection, is actually going through its third reading in the House of Commons. Of course, with the help of the World Health Organization, the United Nations, and the World Economic Forum, these NGOs or non-governmental organizations seem to be creating for their own agenda, their own money-making schemes, their own depopulation agenda, and actually enjoy infringing on our rights and freedoms, all under the guise of the free and democratic nation of Canada. As most of our viewers can relate, we most often have to scrutinize the content of our mainstream media because they often toe the line of the major corporations of the world who have literally been running the shows for literally decades. Our favorite clips, of which we're going to show you right here, of a media agenda that is a perfect rendition of an old Nazi propaganda conspiracy theory that has actually been proven to be reality, is going to be shown right now. We're actually going to be showing you what Operation Mockingbird is, and as they say, is extremely dangerous to our democracy. Here's the clip. Run it, boys.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about trouble and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 See? In other words, as you can plainly see, the overlord agenda is actually trying very hard to instill in you that democracy is a good thing. As a matter of fact, this is exactly why we created TIPS, Truth in Plain Sight, so that you could get the real news from the people safely on your phones or at home without the eyes of Big Brother. So here's my question that we've been waiting for. What is democracy? And why is it such a big deal to ask questions around that topic? I mean, I can understand why people in the past got a little funny around wondering why Canada is run by a democracy when it doesn't seem to be that way whatsoever. I always knew that things were a little funny in this really great country of mine, or in my town, or in my school, or in my job, even my family. As long as I didn't ask too many questions, about why certain aspects of a seemingly perfect country or a free society didn't translate like that into my own life. Sometimes I receive great tips and research from friends and viewers and emails pointing me in interesting directions and chat room topics that often pique my interest enough to want to bring it here on a show for tips. This show is one of those times. I had to put the following information that I received into a search engine because I actually couldn't remember which viewer sent this to us. So if it is you, if you're watching this today and say, hey, I sent this to Tips, I sent this to Lamont, please let us know and we'll give you the attribution to say thank you so much for sending us this great information. Now, we'll include the link to this piece in the show description so you can get a copy and look at the history behind this. So here is the full text on which the 1966 TV reduction entitled A Constitutional Republic, Not a Democracy by Dan Smoot was based and written.
A constitutional republic, not a democracy. The ideal of a democracy is universal equality. The ideal of a constitutional republic is individual liberty. A democracy always degenerates into dictatorship, which promises government-guaranteed equality and security, but it delivers nothing but poverty and serfdom for the people it robs and rules. America was founded as a constitutional republic to safeguard the liberties of the people against the tyranny of democracy or of one-man dictatorship. In this century, great strides have been made toward the goal of subverting our republic into a democracy. The foremost tactic of the subverters is subversion of language. By calling America a democracy until people thoughtlessly accept and use the term, the totalitarians have obscured the real meaning of our principles of government. That is a summary of my report on a constitutional republic, not a democracy. The full report after a message from my sponsor. A democracy is a political system in which the people periodically, by majority vote at the polls, select their rulers. The rulers then have absolute power to make whatever laws they please by majority vote among themselves. In a constitutional republic, the people also, by majority vote at the polls, select rulers who make laws by majority vote among themselves. But the rulers cannot make any laws they please because the Constitution severely restricts their lawmaking power. The ideal of a democracy is universal equality. The ideal of a constitutional republic is individual liberty. In this century, great strides have been made toward the goal of subverting our republic and transforming it into a democracy. The foremost tactic of the subverters is subversion of language. By calling America a democracy until people thoughtlessly accept and use the term, totalitarians have obscured the real meaning of American principles of government.
I recommend reading the transcript too, as it contains some small but important extra passages that serve as a link between one statement and another in the video. You'll want to know this. It's super important. In the 2000s, democracies at any latitude are experiencing exactly what Mr. Smoot laid out. Please keep in mind that this passage is geared towards the US Constitution and its people. In my opinion, this topic is just as important to Canadians and the way our version of what I call democracy was played out. The Americas and Canada are owned by the same people. So they may have us thinking that it's a different constitution, but the way our laws are laid out, it's not that different. Some of the same precedents in our courts are laid out for us to be able to go into the law and see how this is all very similar. So here's the difference. Here's the piece. Difference between a democracy and a constitutional republic. A democracy is a political system in which the people periodically, by majority vote at the polls, select their rulers. The rulers then have absolute power to make whatever laws they please by majority vote amongst themselves. In a constitutional republic, the people also by majority vote at the polls select rulers who make laws by majority vote amongst themselves. But the rulers cannot make any laws they please because they work for the people and are bound by the Constitution that was created of the people, by the people, and for the people. because the Constitution severely restricts their lawmaking power. And there's a point to that. So, the ideal of a democracy is universal equality, or communism and totalitarian authority and sovereignty of the state, not the people. The people are actually serving the state government. The ideal of a constitutional republic is an individual freedom, sovereignty of the people. The government serves the people. In this century, great strides have been made towards subverting our republic, US and Canada, and transforming it into a democracy. The foremost tactics of these subverters is by language, by calling America a democracy until people thoughtlessly accept and use the term. Totalitarianism has obscured the real meaning of American principles of government and Canada. Writers of the Constitution were anxious to safeguard liberty against dictatorship. Monarchy, they called it. But their chief anxiety was to protect the country against democracy. So, Edmund Randolph, who was a delegate to the Constitutional Convention from Virginia, said, "The general object of the convention was to provide a cure to the follies and fury of a democracy." Elbridge Gerry and Roger Sherman, who were delegates of the Constitutional Convention for Massachusetts and Connecticut, urged the Constitutional Convention to create a system to eliminate the evils that flow from the excess of democracy. Alexander Hamilton, a delegate to the Constitutional Convention from New York, said, "We are forming a Republican government. Real liberty is not found in democracy. If we incline too much to democracy, we shall soon shoot into a monarchy." Sound familiar, my friends? John Adams, one of the giants of the American Revolutionary period, said, "Democracy, communism, will envy all, contend with all, and endeavor to pull all down. And when by chance it happens to get the upper hand for a short time, democracy will be revengeful, bloody, and cruel." America was founded not as a democracy, but as a constitutional republic. We pledge allegiance to a republic for which our flag stands, not to a democracy. The Constitution requires a republican form of government for all governments, for all states, but does not mention democracy, and neither does the Declaration of Independence of the Bill of Rights. Foreman asked, in what kind of government the convention had given America? And Benjamin Franklin replied, "A republic, if you can keep it." Very old and very wise Benjamin Franklin saw through the mists of time to the day when America and Canada might trade their freedom from a constitutional republic for the promise of a government guaranteed equality and security system, communism, in a democracy, and beyond that to the day when democracy inevitably decays into totalitarian dictatorships, guaranteeing nothing but poverty and serfdom for the people it robs and rules. So, there you have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed my rendition of trying to pull in Canada into what's going on in the US, because, folks, we're not far from the truth. We're paying a lot of attention to what's happening in the US right now. And in fact, whatever happens in the US is going to have direct implications as to how we move forward here in Canada. These are my thoughts on the matter. So, why am I putting this out there today? Well, in the very near future, there may be a time in Canada, or whatever we're going to call this country, or parts of it in time to come, and I want to entertain all the possibilities of what may come, so that hopefully, if anything, but a so-called democracy is called, I call democracy, because 51% of the population determining what the rest of the 49% of us, of our society, should do and what it shouldn't do, and then they consider us a fringe minority? No. Certain factions of people who hold unacceptable views, such as myself, don't work. for these people. And for me personally, or the rest of my fringe majority friends here in Canada and elsewhere in the world, I don't think democracy is going to be working for us for very much longer. My name is Lamont Democracy. I am a newscaster and opinionist for Truth in Plain Sight, and these are my views expressed freely. We look forward to hearing your feedback, comments. Let us know what you think. Send us an email, subscribe to our next show, and until next time, thank you very much.
Follow Truth in Plain Sight, bringing truth to light in unbiased, nonpartisan, factually founded reporting worldwide.